Throughout human history, some plants have been treasured for their taste, tradition, or ritual, while others carried secrets and threats that made governments nervous. Our parents always chased flavor and aroma in the kitchen, and this was reflected in their garden choices. But a few crops were more than just delicious. They were dangerous, addictive, or tightly controlled. From tiny seeds on pastries to bitter cactus buttons, these plants have stories worth telling. Below are 5 illegal crops that taste amazing. But at what cost? You'll see why they were prized, what made them risky, and what safe alternatives can capture their flavor without getting in trouble. Let's get into it. Opium Poppy. First up is the Opium Poppy, scientifically known as Papaver somniferum. Long before supermarket bakeries and modern kitchens, the opium poppy was grown across the Mediterranean and Central Asia. It was a plant with many faces. Some varieties were short and ornamental, with delicate flowers in pinks, whites, and purples. Others were taller, packed with tiny blue-black seeds that would one day appear in breads, bagels, and cakes. Those seeds are what most people know. Their flavor is nutty, soft, and slightly sweet. But the same plant also produces a milky latex from its pods, the source of opium alkaloids like morphine and codeine. One plant, 2 very different sides, one harmless in the kitchen, one dangerous if misused. Back in the day, farmers had to be careful. A single seed pod could hold something powerful enough to attract unwanted attention. For generations, poppy seeds were quietly loved in kitchens around the world. A sprinkle on bread, a filling in sweet rolls, or ground into a paste for pastries. Poppy seeds give texture and aroma in a way few other seeds can. In Central Europe, families made holiday rolls stuffed with ground poppy seeds, walnuts, and honey. In India and Pakistan, curries and sauces often relied on crushed seeds to add subtle richness. They're not flashy, but when a bite hits the tongue, the flavor is nutty, warm, and unmistakable. Chefs and home cooks alike praise it for that finishing touch, the tiny detail that makes bread or dessert taste special. In short, the poppy's culinary side has been quietly powering kitchens for centuries. Despite all that good use in the kitchen, there was always another side to this plant. While the seeds on bakery shelves are fine, the pods and latex are heavily regulated. Growing opium poppies with the intent to produce opium is a federal offense in many countries, including the United States. Even possessing unprocessed pods can land a person in serious trouble. Farmers who tried to grow large plots without permission risked having their crops seized, fines, and even prison. The law drew a sharp line between a few harmless seeds and the rest of the plant. That meant that backyard growers or curious gardeners had to tread carefully. On camera, showing the plant in bloom could raise eyebrows, even if the seeds were safe to bake with. That's why safe alternatives are key for filming and for cooks who want flavor without risk. The danger wasn't just legal. The latex from poppy pods contains morphine, codeine, and other opiates, powerful and addictive compounds. Misuse can lead to dependence, overdose, and even death. Even leftover debris on unwashed seeds can trigger drug tests or mild effects if consumed in quantity. The seeds themselves are safe, but anyone handling pods or straw needs to respect the plant. In the past, communities learned to separate the edible from the hazardous, a lesson still relevant for anyone interested in the plant today. For cooks and creators, the solution was simple. Use legal seeds that capture the flavor and texture. Toasted sesame seeds offer nutty warmth. Chia seeds give a crunchy pop similar to poppy seeds on a roll. Nigella, or black cumin, brings a slightly peppery aromatic twist. On camera, these alternatives look almost identical to real poppy seeds. maintaining the visual story. A baker sprinkling sesame or chia over a loaf can replicate the sensory satisfaction of poppy seeds without any legal or health risks. That's the secret. You get the flavor, the texture, and the story without stepping into danger. Even today, when you bite into a poppy-topped roll, it's easy to forget how carefully the plant had to be handled. Tiny seeds hiding a big history, culinary and legal. That's the opium poppy. Beautiful in bloom, delicious in baking, and endlessly fascinating as a plant that straddles two worlds. Up next is a crop that's literally a drug. Yeah, you heard that right. Coca. High in the misty slopes of the Andes, there's a shrub that changed the course of history. The coca plant, Erythroxylum coca, has been cultivated for thousands of years by the indigenous peoples of Peru and Bolivia. Its leaves are small, shiny, and oval, simple at a glance but carrying deep cultural meaning. For mountain communities living at high altitude, coca was a lifeline. The leaves helped fight fatigue, hunger, and the thin air of the Andes. In the fields, miners and farmers slowly chewed them, releasing mild energy and focus that helped them work long hours. To these people, coca wasn't a drug. It was part of daily survival, a plant as common as coffee or tea elsewhere in the world. Traditionally, coca leaves were revered for their gentle power. Chewing the leaves or brewing them into tea gave a subtle lift, easing pain and sharpening the senses. Travelers to the region still drink coca tea today to help with altitude sickness. The taste is earthy and slightly bitter, like green tea with a herbal edge. For Andean culture, it's more than flavor. It's ceremony, health, and heritage. Entire festivals once centered on coca, with songs and rituals honoring its spirit. Later, in the 19th century, Western chemists isolated the plant's alkaloid called cocaine, and the plant's name became infamous. Yet the traditional leaf itself was never the villain. It was the refined chemical that carried the trouble. Once the West discovered cocaine's stimulating effects, laws changed fast. By the early 20th century, coca leaves and their extracts were banned or tightly controlled across most of the world. In the United States, the Harrison Narcotics Act of 1914 made coca cultivation and processing illegal without government approval. It even became worse due to the illegal activities of Pablo Escobar. Today, only a handful of countries, like Bolivia and Peru, permit traditional use and small-scale farming. Outside of these regions, possession of coca leaves can bring serious legal consequences, including imprisonment. Even importing coca tea into other countries is prohibited. What was once a sacred plant of the Andes became, under law, a controlled substance. The raw leaf, when used in its natural form, has only mild stimulant properties, far less than coffee or tea. But when processed into cocaine, its potency and risk skyrocket. Addiction, heart failure, and mental health decline all trace back to the refined chemical, not the ancient leaf. Yet, because the two are tied together, the entire plant remains stigmatized. This is one of the great tragedies of the coca story. How a harmless, helpful plant became forever linked with one of the most destructive drugs on Earth. In modern times, health authorities recognize that chewing coca leaves or drinking coca tea in traditional contexts poses little risk, but outside those legal boundaries, it's a line few dare to cross. For creators or cooks wanting to explore its flavor, there are legal, safe substitutes. Yerba mate, another South American favorite, offers a similar grassy, energizing taste. Green tea carries the same clean, earthy tones, while guayusa leaf, used in Ecuador, gives a smoother, slightly sweeter lift. On camera, these teas can visually and symbolically stand in for coca, showing the same cultural respect without breaking any laws. A steaming cup, a mountain backdrop, and a simple story about endurance that's enough to evoke what Coca represented to those who relied on it for strength and spirit. In the end, Coca's story is one of contrast, a plant born in ritual and respect, reshaped by global demand and misunderstood for over a century.
Khat.
Across the highlands of East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, a small evergreen shrub once grew in nearly every village garden. Known as Khatha edulis, or Khat, its leaves were prized for their freshness, fragrance, and faint sweetness. Farmers plucked them in the morning when the dew still clung to the stems, wrapping bundles in banana leaves to keep them moist through the day. In Yemen, Ethiopia, and Somalia, Khat wasn't just a plant, it was a daily ritual. Gatherings were built around it. Men would sit together, slowly chewing the tender young leaves, talking, laughing, and sharing stories that carried on until sunset. The act itself was social and sacred, connecting people through conversation and calm wakefulness. Fresh Khat leaves have a mildly bitter green taste, almost like strong tea mixed with mint and clove. When chewed, they release a compound that brings gentle alertness, helping people stay awake through long workdays or night prayers. In the places it grew naturally, Khat had cultural value similar to coffee in Europe. Traders and poets praised its leaf of wisdom, saying it lifted the mind without dulling the spirit. For centuries, no one saw it as dangerous. It was simply part of life. But as Khat spread beyond its homelands, governments began to take notice. By the 20th century, scientists isolated its stimulant compound, cathinone, and things changed quickly. In the United States and many other nations, Khat's chemistry placed it in the same legal class as amphetamines. Cathinone was labeled a Schedule I substance, meaning no accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Suddenly, a plant that had been chewed in markets and courtyards for centuries became contraband. Importing or selling fresh Khat leaves could lead to federal prosecution. Even small amounts brought in for personal use were subject to seizure. The law didn't distinguish between tradition and trafficking. It saw only the active compound. In countries like the UK and Canada, similar bans followed, driven by concerns over misuse and public health. Yet in Ethiopia and Yemen, Khat remains legal, still woven into daily routine, weddings, and festivals. Khat's effects depend on how much and how often it's used. In small amounts, it can boost energy and mood, much like coffee. But heavy or constant chewing may lead to insomnia, raised blood pressure, and mood swings. The biggest danger isn't the plant itself, it's dependency. When chewed from morning to night, users may skip meals or lose focus once the high fades. Over time, that habit can affect work, family, and health. Still, within its cultural setting, Khat use is often moderate, ritualized, and social, rather than reckless. Its modern reputation, shaped by laws far from where it grows, often overlooks that difference. If you want to capture Khat's story on screen without crossing any legal lines, green tea and yerba mate make perfect stand-ins. Both share its grassy flavor and gentle stimulation. A fresh sprig of mint adds the bright, leafy aroma that Khat users love. You can show the ritual instead of the substance. Friends sitting together, sipping tea, exchanging laughter and calm energy. That scene alone tells what Khat meant. Community, alertness, and shared tradition. Khat's journey is a reminder of how plants can change meaning when they cross borders. In one country, it's a heritage crop that fuels conversation and friendship. In another, it's a banned stimulant. Yet the heart of its story isn't about chemistry, it's about connection. Peyote. In the dry deserts of northern Mexico and southern Texas grows a small, unassuming cactus that has fascinated humanity for centuries. Called Lopophora williamsii or peyote, it is easy to overlook. A round, button-shaped cactus, soft and spineless, blending perfectly into the sand. But beneath its modest look lies a story that stretches back thousands of years. Indigenous peoples of the region, including the Huichol, Tarahumara, and later the Native American Church, regarded peyote as sacred. They called it a teacher or medicine, believing it connected the physical and spiritual worlds. Archaeologists have found peyote buttons in caves dating back more than 5,000 years, proof of its deep roots in ceremony and culture long before any laws existed. Peyote's value was never about flavor, though those who have tasted it describe it as deeply bitter, almost like wild herbs soaked in earth and sun. Its importance was spiritual. In ancient ceremonies, peyote was prepared carefully and consumed as part of night-long rituals filled with song, drumming, and prayer. Participants said it helped them see visions, confront fears, and find meaning in hardship. To them, it was not a drug, but a bridge to ancestors, to healing, to the divine. Even as modern life advanced, peyote remained a living tradition among Native communities, passed down through generations with respect and restraint. In the modern era, peyote became a target of prohibition. When Western science identified mescaline, the compound responsible for its psychedelic effects, it was quickly classified as a controlled substance. By the mid-20th century, laws across North America banned its cultivation, possession, and use, except for narrow religious exemptions. Today in the United States, only members of the Native American Church are legally permitted to use peyote in spiritual ceremonies. For everyone else, growing or possessing it remains a federal offense punishable by fines or imprisonment. Beyond legality, there is also a conservation concern. Wild peyote populations are declining rapidly due to overharvesting and habitat loss. Poaching for recreational or underground use threatens a plant already struggling to survive in the wild. Peyote's effects are powerful and unpredictable. When consumed, it induces altered perception, heightened emotion, and, in the wrong setting, intense psychological distress. Traditional ceremonies always included preparation such as fasting, guidance, and community support to ensure safety and purpose. Outside those contexts, misuse can lead to anxiety, confusion, or panic. Physically, peyote is not addictive, but its psychedelic properties demand respect and careful handling. The danger is not so much in the plant itself, but in how it is used and whether the person using it understands its history and sacred role. For visual or culinary storytelling, there are ways to honor peyote's legacy without breaking any laws. Bitter herbal tonics such as gentian root, wormwood, or dandelion greens echo the sharp, earthy flavor described in ritual accounts. A small glass of bitter tonic on camera can represent the plant's taste symbolically. To capture its deeper meaning, focus on the cultural story instead, the long continuity of indigenous traditions, the songs and prayers carried through generations, and the modern efforts to protect peyote populations from extinction. That message, respect over recreation, preserves what peyote truly stands for. In the desert, peyote grows slowly, taking up to 15 years to mature. Each small button that survives carries centuries of memory. For those who still gather it legally and prayerfully, it is not a hallucinogen, but a gift, a reminder that the earth still holds mysteries we do not fully understand. Psilocybin mushrooms. There was a time when certain wild mushrooms were more than food. They were part of human belief and tradition. In ancient Mexico and Central America, people gathered small brown mushrooms for sacred ceremonies filled with prayer, music, and quiet reflection. They were not eaten casually, but with intention and respect. Generations passed down the knowledge of how to prepare and use them safely. Later, scientists identified these same mushrooms as psilocybe, the source of psilocybin, a natural compound that changes perception, mood, and thought. They became known as the magic mushrooms that could open the mind to visions once seen only in dreams. Psilocybin mushrooms have been described as a tool for deep insight and self-understanding. In traditional ceremonies, healers guided participants through controlled experiences that were meant to heal emotional pain or restore balance to the spirit. The flavor was earthy and bitter, but it was never about taste. It was about transformation. Centuries later, interest in psilocybin returned, this time from doctors and researchers studying its possible medical value. Clinical studies suggest that psilocybin, under supervision, may help with depression, anxiety, and addiction by changing how the brain processes emotion and fear. To many, it remains a fascinating symbol of how nature can influence both the body and the mind. Under United States federal law, psilocybin and psilocin are classified as Schedule Y substances, meaning they are considered to have no accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse medical use and a high potential for abuse. Growing, possessing, or distributing psilocybin mushrooms can lead to serious criminal charges, including fines and imprisonment. However, laws are slowly changing in certain places. Some cities, such as Denver and Seattle, have decriminalized small amounts for personal use, and Oregon has created a regulated medical program for supervised psilocybin therapy. Despite these exceptions, psilocybin remains illegal across most of the country, and anyone considering growing or using them should understand the significant legal risk involved. Psilocybin mushrooms are strong hallucinogens that can cause unpredictable mental effects. While some people experience feelings of connection, peace, or joy, others report panic, fear, and confusion. These experiences, known as bad trips, can last for hours and leave lasting emotional distress. The intensity of psilocybin's effects depends on the person, the environment, and the amount consumed. Those with a history of anxiety disorders, psychosis, or schizophrenia are especially vulnerable to harmful reactions. Even in modern therapeutic settings, trained guides are needed to maintain safety and calm. Without preparation or support, psilocybin can be unsettling rather than enlightening. For anyone exploring flavor rather than altered states, there are plenty of legal and safe mushrooms to enjoy. Shiitake, oyster, and lion's mane mushrooms all offer the deep, earthy taste and meaty texture that mushroom lovers crave. They can be grilled, roasted, or added to stews and soups for rich, complex flavor. Lion's mane, in particular, has gained popularity for its potential brain-supporting benefits without any psychedelic effects. These varieties remind us that the world of mushrooms is vast and rewarding, and that not every mystery from nature needs to be forbidden to be fascinating or delicious. Which of these 5 plants surprised you the most? Did you know they were once banned or heavily controlled? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this interesting, leave a hype and subscribe for more.